right. So anytime.
Our reading today is, we're celebrating Gregory the Great, Bishop of Rome, who died in 604. Psalm 107, verses 49. Some wandered in desert wastes, finding no way to an inhabited town. Hungry and thirsty, their soul fainted within them. Then they cried to the Lord in their trouble, and he delivered them from their distress. He led them by a straight way until they reached an inhabited town. Let them thank the Lord for his steadfast love, for his wondrous works to humankind. For he satisfies the thirsty, and the hungry he fills with good things. I'll read it again. Some wandered in desert wastes, finding no way to an inhabited town. Hungry and thirsty, their soul fainted within them. Then they cried to the Lord in their trouble, and he delivered them from their distress. He led them by a straight way until they reached an inhabited town. Let them thank the Lord for his steadfast love, for his wondrous works to humankind. For he satisfies the thirsty, and the hungry he fills with good things. Let us pray. You are the Lord who provides. While we are prone to seeking food that ultimately does not satisfy, guide us to what is good. Remind us to cry out to you in our joys and sorrows, so we can receive your love and mercy. Amen.
Amen.
And our hymn is All Who Hunger Gather Gladly.
And I'm going to give you a key.
Ooh,
What page is
461.
461.
Do you have a book, Jim? Okay.
We will, I will just sing, otherwise we don't leave.
Good intro.
Okay, so here we go.
All who hunger gather gladly, holy manna is our bread. Come from wilderness and wandering, here in truth we will be fed. You that yearn for days of fullness, all around us is our food. Taste and see the grace eternal. Taste and see that God is good. All who hunger, never strangers, eagerly all welcome guests. Come from restlessness and roaming, here in joy we keep a feast. We that once were lost and scattered, in communion's love have stood. Taste and see the grace eternal. Taste and see that God is good. All who hunger sing together. Jesus Christ is living bread. Come from loneliness and longing, here in peace we have been fed. Blessed are those who from this table live their days in gratitude. Taste and see the grace eternal face, and see that God is good.
Wow. I think we should take this show on the road.
The road. I'm taking mine to Iron.
Welcome to Jim and welcome to Jeff, Shameen, and Brian, who are with us electronically, hopefully at some point. They're not with us right now, but I'm recording it so they can see it later. And if they have questions, that way they can ask us later or ask me later. So welcome everybody. It is good to be gathered together again. Anybody know how many days until our next retreat?
Not very many.
How many?
Less than 30.
Yeah,
What are the dates?
24.
Oh man.
What day? What are the days again?
April 7th.
7,
6 and 7.
6 and 7.
Wow. Is that 21? No, that can't be because that'd be a,
It'll be 21 coming up on Friday.
yeah. So,
Friday
wow.
night and Saturday, right? What time? 5 o'clock on Friday?
Yes, we have an agenda, a tentative agenda, I should say, that we'll share with you. I thought I sent those out to everybody, but apparently I didn't. And so what I'd like to do first is to, I have them, just a second, I'm going to do a share screen here. I have the, first, I guess what I wanted to talk about is the invitation, and why won't you move? For pastors and leaders to send to their congregations, those who will be attending the Vitality Retreat. This is, remember last time we had people who said they didn't really know what was going on, when it was going on, where it was going on. So this would be an invitation letter that says, thank you for accepting God's call to bring vitality to the mission and life of our congregation. So the pastor will be giving these, or the leader will be giving these to the congregation. We'll be meeting for our second retreat called the EKG Retreat, taking the heartbeat of our congregation and what matters. Meeting April 6th at 7:18 at St. John's in Carroll. Super 8 hotel with a number there or Days Inn. And they know that I've already talked to the leaders that there are rooms reserved, but they have to call in and pay for them themselves. Each of you, if you would please, with the exception of Cindy, you don't get to stay in a hotel. The rest of you, if you would please let me know if you want a double room so you can, like some of you last time shared with some of your members to save money, that's fine. But I will pay for each of the coaches. And so I thought about this, Brian and Shameen. You know, if I take care of you and Jeff, and Brian, Shameen, and Jeff, I think that probably we could reserve one more room for your congregation that could be on the cost expense of the grant because of the three of you. So that way we could have part of your team.
Did you catch that?
For whose room?
Well, you just told them I was paying their room.
Yes, Grant is paying for your room. Sorry. No, the grant. The Congregation Vitality Grant will pay for your room. So, Friday evening gathering and registration at 5 o'clock. Then at 5:30 we will gather together for a meal. I talked to Pastor Cindy a little bit about that, and she gave me some new ideas for who we might use for the evening meal.
I have it even better.
Oh, good. So I'll continue working with her on that if that's okay with everybody, and we'll figure out a meal plan.
We got great reviews last meals too. So.
Yes, we
Not
did.
that something changed, that'd be fine, but
The Heidi.
Everybody
Peter
went-
meal.
everybody
Okay.
was happy with that.
And then at 6:15, so basically 45 minutes for everybody to, after the meal to eat, to get settled in, and we'll start at 6:15, and we will end at 8:30 with worship. We have a more detailed schedule for those who will be presenting, but this is what the congregations will be receiving, those who are on the congregation teams. So they have some idea of when the start point and when the end is. And then basically at 9 o'clock, it says 9:30 travel home, but if we're done at 9 o'clock and folks that travel want to head home, they can head home. And then Saturday morning, again, we begin at 8:30, and we need to, again, push to have people ready at 8:30. One of the things that I discovered from our responses last time is it's really noisy in that fellowship hall. And I think it would be good just to remind people that this is a small space and there are a lot of people. So when we're not gathered for our own group talk conversations, please respect the other people who are there. We might even tell them that we'll have somebody that will kind of come around and gently remind them if it gets, too noisy, because it really is hard to hear in that room when somebody starts talking. So
It has to be.
yes, very quiet. So so at 8:30 it starts. Gosh, I guess we don't get lunch on Saturday. Do we have a lunchtime break? Can you work on that? I think did we say noon last time, or because it's not currently, we don't have a
Lunch is at noon.
okay, so just add that to the one that goes out to the congregation.
Is this gonna be emailed or mailed to them, or are we taking it with us?
I think, well, if any of you, it probably would be better if I just emailed them. They'll have it instantly. I don't know when you guys are planning on visiting
Or
the
I'm
team.
meeting my group this Sunday, but yeah, it's coming Sunday,
Okay.
so.
Well, I can email it to them, and then you can ask them if they received it. And
Yeah.
good. So we'll have 8:30 start, 12 o'clock lunch, and then at 3:30. Last time we did ascending and commissioning. Are we? Is there one for the second one, a different kind of sending or commissioning, or do we just do a reboot? I don't remember. I don't mean a reboot. I just mean kick them in the. Anyway. And we're not going to have the stories from St. John's, so I would say that what I would recommend is that we move that time back, and if it's done before then, that would be good. But I'd say at 4 o'clock, sending and commissioning.
4 o'clock sending?
Well, because let's look at the retreat or our retreat schedules and kind of talk about that. So anyway, so it has the schedule. A more detailed agenda will be available at the retreat. Remember when they arrived, they had a schedule with a sheet that showed what we were going to be doing, when we were going to be doing it. That will be available for them when they come. And let's see. If you want to share a room.
We do have a commissioning, right?
Okay. If you want to share a room, the team members from, well, we don't have that, right? Because it's the people who are RSVP'd. Nancy arranged for the rooms for people, and I don't want to get into that.
I did this.
Okay, but
This
what I'm
is not
saying,
from
but what I'm
Nancy.
saying is that's how they did it. There was they got a block of rooms and they made enough rooms for everybody and assigned the rooms.
Right.
I don't want to get into that because it gets messy if people don't show up or people change their mind or whatever. So, but I don't know how you do if. So maybe you could leave it in there if you want to share a room. Please talk to the pastor or whatever, because I don't know who. How did you envision that one working? That line working?
I used this letter last year. This
Okay.
is the letter I used last November.
Okay.
And what I did was I had listed in there the names of the people who already told me they were coming, so that if anybody wanted to share a room, they knew the names of the other people. Because by the time we had November, the team had not met yet. And so my team didn't know who else was on the team.
Okay.
So that's why I did that.
So it wouldn't necessarily be needed this time then.
Probably not.
Okay. And of course, so thank you for your part of bringing, and that's the congregation to the next chapter of God's mission on earth. I'm praying for each and every one of you. And then the pastor that is serving there signs that letter and gives it to the congregation participants. Okay. The second piece is that I wanted to start moving towards is
So you want to take that out? You're going
this
ahead
part.
of me.
This part.
Take this out?
Yeah. And then the retreat, do we have a prayer team yet? Has anybody invited anybody to be on the prayer team? No?
For
You
this
said you were still in conversation with the other ones. Did you give them the dates or anything, Grant?
No.
See if they're available. If not, I have some people in mind that I'd like to invite. So,
You say we can be ecumenical about it?
absolutely. Do they pray to the same Jesus?
Well,
Well, not everybody.
make sure that they believe in the triune God, and beyond that, we're good. The more detailed,
Okay, so
yes. Well, you
we
back
just
it
have
up.
to
Yes,
back up a
yes.
little bit. 3:30 sending, 4 o'clock travel home.
Yeah.
More detailed agenda available. Thank you for your part in bringing our congregation, Mr. Jeff Linkout,
Okay.
to the next chapter in God's mission on
Perfect.
earth. I'm praying for each and every one of you. See you there, Pastor. So and so.
Good.
Okay.
That works for me.
All right. That's
Then I'm going to move on. If you can find the detailed agenda, you already have it there, don't you?
Yes, I do.
You're efficient. So, the gathering and then the welcome meal. Oh, does anybody?
Okay. Which one did Grant decide to pick up? Because
I
I
already
didn't make
changed
that
it.
change.
Mine. Here.
Where?
1-to-1.
1-to-1.
Yes, he was voluntold for that one. So the gathering and registration, everybody kind of hangs out there and welcomes people and helps them fill out name tags and get situated in their groups.
And this time we will have the names, emails, phone numbers, and so people just need to check off and verify their information. So we will not have that administrative overhead of putting that list together this time. It's already done.
Except for people who changed
Right, or added members.
or added or.
And so then there will be some, but last time.
Right,
this
the
week,
whole
this time it'll be
list,
this
right,
week.
right.
could we put out like icebreaker questions or something like that? It's something that our teams have been doing just to encourage discussion in that.
At the very beginning.
Well, just a little table tennis.
Like a
That's what we
scripture
decided
talk?
doing.
So as people arrive, there's something for them to.
Ponder, talk about.
Okay.
I can do that. But
Well, I was wondering if they're already from their church though, and they gather.
well, like
Together with
for
their
example, like what's a Lenten? This is getting to know each other better. Like, what's a Lenten habit that you can remember when growing up, or something like that? Something that you even wouldn't know in your own church.
Or even questions that get them talking about their faith. Because even though they've gathered and they know each other, they've probably not had these childhood stories of their faith formation shared with each other. I like that idea a lot.
Is this for this each team then?
Yeah.
Just as they
Table.
come, instead of just an option for them to
Sure.
talk or invite them into a get to know you.
I like it.
And you said you would kind of do that?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, I suggested it. Yeah.
You're not gonna have to be voluntold, huh? Good. Thank you, Grant.
One of the suggestions I have is when you break out into teams again, like you did,
Mm-hmm.
you move the people. There's rooms around.
We discussed that last time.
Yeah,
It's so amazing.
because you just can't. We do have, at one point, that was the entire church, that fellowship hall.
Mm-hmm.
It was the sanctuary, it was the Sunday school rooms, and so we still have those doors or walls, so we could still do some of that, but we could also put some people in the conference room and sub in. We have 3 Sunday schools. We can raise the table height onto the Sunday school tables so that,
I think
we
that's
have
a great
1,
idea.
2, 3, 4 rooms, plus somebody can go to the sanctuary and somebody can go sit in the narthex.
I think
So-
that would be
Really need to break out for the team cards.
On Friday, the only group activity, the only team time we have with the congregations is that discovering the assets that you're leading us in, right? And so in that one, it won't be, I mean, I think it would be good if we do it as a large group. I don't think, even if it gets rowdy, noisy in there, that's not gonna matter because we're focusing on the same types of things. So I think in that one, I think on Friday, we're okay doing that. But on Saturday, when we have the discussions, last time we had discussion after each group had their own team discussion after each presentation. You remember that? Did we find that helpful? I mean, I know aside from the noise, do you believe that was helpful for each team? And like you working with your congregation as a coach to have that time to discuss that particular topic for the short time afterwards, just to debrief and to kind of.
Somewhat so. Of course, I wasn't being in the role of a presenter, and I don't know what it would be like for just being a straight up coach. But it's a chance to, if they have questions, to say, well, this is what we're, clarifying and things like that. But
The only one we had built into the agenda was the one at 3 o'clock.
I know, that's what I'm saying. This is for the second time, right? Oh, no.
No,
that was
this is the
one.
first one, and then this is the second one,
But I thought we had,
and we have this time with the coaches here. We also have table talk with the coach here.
yeah, those
So-
will need to be broken into separate rooms.
Right.
I would think for myself, because each presentation has so much information that it's nice to be able to debrief after each one. Otherwise, it's then you got to go back maybe hours of. If you want to. Go back
So
to
maybe
the
you just simply ask the question, what did you learn from this, or what did you gain, and how might you use this in your context?
And possibly, is there a significant question,
Sure.
that needs some clarification that we can come back to?
I need to tell you guys as coaches, if they have a question, a significant question, and they go, oh my gosh, I don't even know how we're going to do this. Can you tell us, how we might do this? That would not be the time to try to figure that out, but say to them, yes, we will, and if I can't help you, someone else on the team will. But, yes, mark it down, write it down.
The question I'm thinking is like, I didn't understand, or we didn't understand this.
Okay, good.
And in which case that might be something to come back to at some point, as a large group and say, we came away from this lost. Can you say something? But if we missed that.
Okay. Everybody good with that?
Yes.
So what did you learn? How can you put this in your context?
Mhm.
Anything you didn't understand,
Right.
which we'll address when we get that
We can
together.
find what we can learn. So we got some lack of clarity here, and then we have to think about how do we get it clear.
Now, are these the questions you want on in the packet for the handouts? Because last time we
Right.
just gave them those note sheets
Right.
and people used them and they were grateful for not having them too cluttered so that they could just go in and fill it out. Are these the questions
I
you
think
want
I would
on
give those
those?
questions to coaches, those standard questions. I would just say, make sure the coaches are briefed to, that's where you kick off the time of some conversation. Plus, the content questions. I had a suggestion. Since we're moving and breaking people out, sometimes we lose time in getting people to transition, getting people to wind up. I've been in some gatherings where you have a certain time or some kind
Yes.
of, thing that,
Sunday
you know,
school.
so that,
Yeah.
and just really set that up and say, for the sake of all our time, when you hear this, it's time to move,
Yeah.
And
And please remember when you gather back together, just to go ahead and have a seat and be quiet because
Right.
it's harder to get everybody back together again.
Exactly. So just some,
But I do
procedure with
think
it.
breaking out is gonna help tremendously.
I think it will, but then tell
Getting
people,
back
I
together.
learned from you, we are gonna break out, but we need your cooperation to do it efficiently, to, you know, so that we are all able to honor the time of our agenda.
Good.
Yeah.
Very good.
It'll be like tiger time, the kids in the hallway at Fairview have to walk with their hands behind their back, looking straight ahead. Seriously, there's just this list of rules. You know what, you go there, and the kids are moving between things, and you don't hear anything but the sound of feet moving, you know?
Okay, so going back to the general agenda, on Friday they gather together. There's a welcome and a meal prayer. It can be just a simple prayer. I can just, you know, we can do a common meal table prayer, or we could do something fun. What is the consensus of the group?
Fun stuff is good.
Yeah,
Get people in a lighter mood by having a fun.
How much heavy content and what we're.
yeah, let's do like the Jaws grace or something,
Or Superman.
or Superman.
Thank you, God, for giving us food.
There you go.
Actually, for the age of these folks, I don't know if we can get it. One of the Bible camp we go to in Rainbow Trail has a grace to the Beach Boys Kokomo, I think it is.
That'd be perfect.
That would be perfect, 'cause
It might be a little specific to Rainbow Trail.
you
but
know,
we can-
local, sorry. You're way too young for that stuff.
Yeah. Because there's some other fun ones. I don't know, some of the other Bible.
They had the Beach Boys on public TV the other night.
Yeah.
They all should be in a nursing home.
They have been rode hard and put up wet, they're all in their 70s, so.
I wish Isaac didn't have to work Friday and Saturday. It'd be fun to have him come and lead in that, you know, something from camp.
Yeah.
But I think a camp song is good. I think that would be fun, and maybe I'll ask Isaac to help me come up with something, and we'll
Yeah,
go
that
with
would be great.
So go back to the meal and the supper, and then at 6 o'clock I'll introduce each of you as coaches. 6:15 devotions. And we have 30 minutes for devotions. And I know from my perspective, I would like us to do I Notice, I Wonder together, because we've kind of shared that with them. Is there someone, I don't have anybody leading us in that. Is there someone who would like to?
Shameen was really good with the Bible studies last time. To do an I Notice, I Wonder devotion.
I don't know if you heard that, Shameen, but you're being voluntold. And just wait, it was Pastor Denise who
It was
voluntold
me,
you.
I did it.
So stop being so efficient, Shimmy.
Yeah, do a lousy job so you don't get
It
volunteered.
was a wonderful compliment.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is a strange experience to not be at a meeting, to still see yourself being volunteered.
That's right.
Not at the meeting.
That'll teach you not to be active.
That's right.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, it definitely wasn't their fault. It was mine for scheduling it at this time, but today. So, if Shameen, if you decide that you don't want to do that, just let me know, and I'll get somebody else to do it. That would be fine. Cindy will back up if in the event, but
Only if
only
she's dying.
exactly. So thank you for being voluntold and using your gifts. And
I'll
then
put her in with a question mark.
okay.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to begin the introduction to the overall, first of all, just kind of a reminder of what we did in part one, and talking about relationship, and talking about purpose, and having, for Christ's sake, why are you here? And kind of get people back in that thought process. And then say, these are the things that we're going to be doing this time, and kind of doing an overview of the process for part two. And then discovering assets at 7 o'clock. Jim Mossman has agreed to lead this, and this is very much, if you remember, an interactive. It's fun, and they will get into this really easy and really quickly. But what we're going to do is to teach them how to use this in their congregation so that they can see the gifts and the assets that, they have within their own congregation. And there's a way to do that Jim will set up, and we'll have them taking paper and writing things down, and then we'll have it put it on where is the best place in that fellowship hall to post-it notes?
All along that north wall, which is the double doors.
By the kitchens is the north, isn't it? No,
That's east. The north wall is like where the piano is.
Where
Okay.
the entryway is, right? Where you
Yeah.
And we could move, stuff around.
Okay.
So the piano will stay put. I'm just saying that right now. But like there's a
What?
hangar
We can't move
place.
the piano? I just want you to see Cindy's face on it.
The other thing is we could do it because it'll be evening. We could hang them on the windows on the west wall. There's all those banners. So
Well, let's look at that together. I'm going to be traveling over your way soon, so let's look at that together and think about that. So Jim is going to lead us in that exercise, and then we're going to be going after that for a time of prayer. It says move to the sanctuary. I'm not convinced we will have to do that. I will ask Shameen if I think that's probably appropriate that we go to the worship space, because then it also gets them up and moving, and they can take a break if they need to.
Is this for my notice? I wonder.
No.
No, it's for what worked and what didn't.
Yes.
Oh,
So we have
okay.
a sharing time. I like doing that in the sanctuary.
Because then it's kind of in a more, if you will, a more holy space.
The limitation of any sanctuary is that we're all facing.
but in our sanctuary, you can move the pews.
Yeah, but you don't want to do that on a Saturday.
Well, you don't have to move it back. We have a jig to line them up.
Okay.
I'm seriously.
I'm fine with either way. I was just saying,
Yeah.
if you're wanting something interactive,
Yeah, you
we're all
can't sit
sitting
in
in
a
rows
sanctuary.
facing, it breaks that down. So.
Can I get a group, kind of what does a group think? Is it better to, since they've already been up and moving and walking around, to do that processing in the fellowship hall first?
What are you processing again?
What worked,
and
what didn't work?
Hopes and fears.
Monday morning after daylight savings.
What worked, what didn't work? And I'm assuming this is also in terms of the past 3 months since you've been starting this process. What has worked? What hasn't worked for you? What's gone well? Now, here's the thing that I would like to do is, it kind of came as an aha moment to me yesterday when Brian was talking to the Trinity team. This would be a great place for you as a coach to write down the activities they've done, the steps they've taken, the things they've done, because each congregation sees themselves as only doing one thing, if they have done something. But when you put that up there and you say, Trinity is having loaves and fishes dinner and inviting people to come so they can learn about God's providing and how God takes care of us, and God has got a hopefulness, right? And other churches are doing different things. Then they can see what other people are doing and see some steps that maybe they would be able to do themselves. And I think that would be a good time for coaches to pay attention to that, and then maybe lift those up afterwards. And I think it's helpful if the coach is able to do that when I ask for, so tell me what's working, what's not working with your team. And maybe the coach could do that. Would you agree with that? Or do you want the team to express that? Maybe the coach could encourage somebody on the team, say, think about something.
I think it gets in the way of even encouraging us to accompany and
Not do.
Right.
So I think it works against that a lot
Okay.
to put us in the position of spokesperson of them. I think it would be
I
better.
agree.
And I can't speak for your teams, but my team is real self-sufficient. I mean,
Yeah.
they can they're just gung ho and they've got a purpose in their head.
Okay.
But what I like is having the coach, when we get to worship, let's have the coaches pray for what they've done that worked and what they, with
Ooh.
thanks.
Oh,
And
I
what
like that a
didn't
lot.
work.
Okay.
You know,
Put that
thank you
in.
for the learning.
So that I remember.
Okay.
Take a note, Denise.
You've got a notepad in front of you.
I know, but she just said.
We're doing it, or we're talking about the 8 o'clock PM, right? Where the congregation gives hopes and fears, right?
This is the 8 o'clock
And
PM.
we're talking right now about continuing it in the fellowship.
Yes.
mode, and this is a group thing, not an individual.
These are each
Someone.
team.
Each team, but it's going to be shared with the group then sometime.
Yes.
For the whole group after our discussion.
Well, or do you want to surprise them and do it with the prayers? I think they still need to report in.
No, I think, and I
They need
think it's important that they share with each other.
I'm just asking
Yeah.
to clarify.
Yeah, I would prefer that they do that.
And who's leading this session, or is that already been done? Is that you?
I can facilitate. So as I understand what you're saying, we're going to have from 8 o'clock to 8:30. Each congregation is going to have their own team gathered together with their coach, and you're going to talk about since you started this process, the things that have worked, the things that maybe have been challenging or haven't worked, and what words did you use?
I've already forgotten.
Well, we changed the agenda slightly from what.
It says fears, hopes and fears.
Right,
Okay.
she did hopes and fears, and we talked about that and thought that we would rather have what worked and what didn't, rather than hopes and fears.
What's worked and what hasn't.
Yeah, because hopes and fears gives them the idea that there should be something they're afraid of. And even if they are hopeful, they don't have to be afraid of anything. So we changed that vocabulary to what worked and what didn't.
Jeff, you probably know this from Boy Scouts, so it would be roses, buds, and thorns.
Right. Yeah, they do a process from camp, roses, buds, and thorns, because what really flourished, what did you see beautiful that happened? The thorn is what happened that you didn't like very well, didn't experience in a good end. Buds are what areas of growth could you see emerging from that?
Okay, we had a half an hour to do this, so like 15 minutes to discuss it, and then have a group sharing.
Let's.
And then how about the prayer being done in the chapel?
By the coaches.
Prior to worship or during worship?
During worship.
During worship.
The way we prayed for our
Or the
teams
other
last
one.
time,
For
we'll
the
pray for the teams again.
commissioning.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
I mean,
at
I mean,
8:30.
that's what we did.
Yeah,
last
here
time.
it is worship.
I know what you're saying, but I'm just saying we did that in the
Right.
previous one.
So are we having this sharing in the sanctuary?
Well, here's an idea.
Because I
Say
like
you
the
can
idea
move
of a
your
podium.
Yes.
Can we set up some pews so that there's two sides of it
Yes,
facing each other?
we can turn that into a really neat space.
All right.
And I just need people to be willing on Saturday afternoon to put
Put
it
it
all
back.
back.
Yeah.
It doesn't take long to put it back.
Because
Okay.
then you could create a space that would be worshipful, but it would also
I mean, I can bring the altar down
Yeah.
to the center.
Wow.
Yeah,
okay.
we can move, everything moves.
I want your church.
It's pretty
Can't have it over my dead body.
So Shameen, I think what we're inviting you to do is have some music playing during the prayers, and then invite the prayers of the people, and then the coaches will, maybe it would be helpful if we figured out even an order ahead of time, gave somebody a number, and then said, you're gonna do the first prayer, you're gonna do second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth prayer. That way we don't have to worry about,
Pray the last time.
Yeah, last
well,
time.
but last time you were playing. Now, Shameen, here we go. Shameen is a coach for a team, and if she's playing guitar, it's gonna be really hard. You can let me know if you're able to do that, but if she would have somebody, she could give it,
give her the highest number, and when it's her turn, she simply stops playing,
And starts praying.
and starts praying.
And then she can start paying.
Mhm.
Just saying.
or maybe Shameen, if we can talk about that, but if
Yeah.
you wanted to,
She's leading worship too.
yes, if you
She
wanted,
agreed to that already.
she did.
It's the Shameen Show.
She didn't agree to the motion yet, but she's going to, right?
Don't you love this? Well, anyway, Shameen, if you're willing to just play background music, and if you want, I also would be willing, since I'm not with a team, I could do the Atlantic team's prayers for the celebration for things that went well, and give God thanks for that, and also the challenges, the things that we pray God will help moving into the future.
She's not.
She's not
She's
Atlantic.
at
Okay, so Salem.
Okay.
Thank you. Just because you need help. No, Jeff has Atlantic. Sorry about that. So yeah, Shameen, I sent her the wrong, congregation the first time for the.
You said
for
me
the-
the wrong one. No. You asked me how things were going at Bethel, but
Yeah.
they're going really well. From what I've heard.
They're at the bottom of
That left me off, so
Who's
we're
got
good.
what?
Okay. Yeah, and there is obviously no St. John Cushing, and also
There is
please
no
put
St. John Cushing?
no. Also, please include pastor in front of Grant's title, because you have the other pastors listed. Or
Yes.
I thought you were just the one that was paying for everything, Grant.
it's in your name, Grant.
God grant me.
Sorry, I don't know how I did that.
That's okay. I just something I noticed. So
Well, I misspelled your name in the handout too.
You misspelled Grant?
Yes.
did you cross two letters?
No, I left the T off.
Gran?
Gran, he was Gran.
Did you even
I
notice
think
that?
I love your apples,
I think we fixed it.
Granny Smith.
Okay.
All right.
So then we'll do the worship
In
at
your car,
8:30.
Grand Prix.
Each coach will pray for their congregation and the things that they heard at that time.
Are we gonna have a format for that?
For the
Mhm.
For the
We
prayer?
did last time and I forgot it.
Right.
Yeah, so I can do the same thing this time.
forget it.
Yeah, I'll come up with a format and forget it.
It's up to you, but I just asked.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll have that ready for you. And
So
leave it at home.
then we start 8:30 a.m. with morning prayer, and Shameen, we haven't talked about that yet, but yes, last time the people that led worship did both, right? We did both morning prayer and the evening worship. Cindy's grinning ear to ear. We can. Did you have something to say, ma'am?
No, okay.
All right.
Just thinking about the last time.
Okay. Then 9 o'clock,
No clue what I
Jeff
did.
Swanson leads us off.
So Shameen leading the prayer too?
Yeah, in the morning.
Is she gonna?
I really think you should double her pay.
Yeah.
Well,
Or I mean, and
do we need another voice in there?
it's never hurt. I mean, it never hurts to have more than one, but I don't know what Shameen had in mind.
Okay.
I don't want to
Why doesn't Shameen feel free to take the lead, but draw it in?
Whatever help she needs.
Well, let's do this.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put it back on camera here. Who is, so that she can see you volunteering? Who is willing to help Shameen with morning prayer for that Saturday morning?
Brian.
If I'm told what to do.
Volunteer.
Okay. So Grant and
Brian.
Bruce is trying to volunteer you, Brian.
Well, Jim said too. Jim's no pop.
Okay, good. So now you know if you want to do it, great. If your team, she has a worship team from St. John that does this stuff. So,
That's cool.
so yeah, if you want to do a morning prayer and you've got it all handled, great. But if you need assistance, you just had some other volunteers. So, morning prayer. Then Jeff Swanson kicks us off with the 8 stages of change. I want to talk a little bit again about our print paper because I have a concern. We're entering into the end of Lent and into Easter, and I know what your schedules are like. How last time it was hard for everybody to get it done before the Sunday or the weekend we presented. My concern is you all are still looking at these other PowerPoints and adapting them. Can we get that done soon enough so that we can have them printed long before the Friday before, I mean.
We can't print them the way we did last
No.
time.
No, there's no way. What I plan on doing this time is just paying somebody to print them, or if I have everything in order, I might, well, I'll figure out how to do it, but
You know, get options they could kill.
yes.
Just give us a date of when you want them and.
Last time we asked for like almost a month lead time, and that would be today.
Too late.
So if you can I'll ask the people in the room, have you looked at the stuff that you volunteered to do and looked at the slides?
But
Okay. Yes, thank you.
by end of next week.
That would be very, very, very helpful. 3 varies.
What are we doing?
So
This is for if you're doing a presentation,
Yes.
Which
You-
you are.
you have,
No.
you have, she panicked for a second. You have all of those, the booklet that we gave out
Yeah.
that are printed,
Yeah.
those came from the presenters. Their
Okay.
material is
Oh.
done ahead of time
Oh,
so
what a
that,
thought.
yes, so that people can have those.
Okay.
So,
All right.
So next week,
So-
Saturday, Sunday?
But I'm not presenting, so I'm not
next
gonna worry
week
about
Sunday
this.
would be good because then I'll have Monday and I can,
So next week Sunday, so you mean the 18th or the 25th?
well, next Sunday is the 18th.
Right.
The 25th would be, I want to do this. Let's put a soft deadline of the 18th. And if you don't get it in, just let me know ahead of time that you're not going to be able to do that. And then give me a date.
I'm finishing Holy Week planning this week,
Okay.
so that's why I was looking at sometime next week. But I'll do it. I'll do the best I can.
Okay. And if you're not going to get it done, let me know so that I can get the stuff put together. Okay.
Okay.
And Brian and Shameen, the same for you guys and Jeff. As soon as you can put that together, the better.
Be down for one-on-ones? Is that the-
I have
One-to-ones.
down for one-on-one conversations and nothing else.
You got me for asset.
I got you
Yeah,
for asset mapping and missional consciousness.
Okay, Grant is doing one-on-one.
Bruce,
That's
you are doing the
beginning,
beginning.
Yeah, and that's a verbal thing.
Yes, but we'll have an insert of how that works, right?
Okay.
We have,
It's in there, I haven't opened it yet, but I think it's
Okay.
in there. I haven't opened it.
We will
Do I need to
all,
bring the candy and the cups? I can, no problem. Although I have cups there. Because we use styrofoam cups, I think.
Personally, I find it easy with whatever you're doing, if you're just in charge of bringing whatever is needed.
Right.
Then that way you know it's there.
Yeah.
so here's the thing. If you, let's say, so you've got to buy candy and cups, those individual cups. No, save your receipts for any expenses you have. And if you have an expense for that, you will be reimbursed for anything related to your presentation, okay? Because you don't need to have an expense on top of your volunteer time and your miles and everything else. So,
What's there, about 50 some people, is that right?
yes.
Okay. So about 80 bags of candy.
depends if you're gonna share.
M&Ms,
Skittles.
Skittles are bad.
So Jeff Swanson starts out with 8 stages of change. I know that you've received that, Jeff. If you need help with it, let me know. Shameen and Brian, Brian was talking yesterday about how excited he is to do mapping your community. He was already,
Brian's doing that?
yes, Brian and Shameen are doing it jointly. And then we'll take a break after doing mapping your community. And then let me ask you a question. One-on-one versus one-to-one, like TO.
It should be 1-2-1.
One-to-one. Have a one-to-one rather than one-on-one.
One-on-one sounds
That's right.
adversarial.
Basket.
It does. It really does. That's why I'm asking. It's still referred to in the circles I work in as one-on-ones, but I think it's more of one-to-one. I'm gonna just talk to you one-to-one.
Yep.
We're on equal ground here.
Yep.
Anything that you want to participate in, great. Anything you don't, feel free to pass.
I have from our previous meeting, I have your name there too. Are you doing part of this?
I am. Yeah, I'm doing the parts at the beginning and the introduction and things like that.
Okay.
But
Then
Grant is doing the one-to-ones.
How do you spell Shanine's name?
CHEMINE.
I got it right.
And then, Bruce, we do the giving game.
That's about what, 5 minutes, 10 months?
Half
Well,
hour.
it's a half hour, and
Oh,
it will take that long to do the 3 stages of that.
Right, but
So
time here is got 11:30. Oh, then a pastor meeting at the same time.
No,
We're not doing that?
We're in the pastor meeting.
Okay.
and the reason for that is I only have 2 pastors who are not coaches right now, and I can have a conversation with them at lunch. So,
It's a half an hour.
No agenda this time. It is not a working lunch, and I think that's important.
I think it is.
12 o'clock to 12:45 is our lunch time. We have 45 minutes to eat, to visit, to get to know each other, and then I'll kind of call us back together. But then Jeff Swanson will lead us. He did the 8 stages of grief. He's also doing
Change.
yeah. Well, change causes it, right? Sorry, Jeff. Yes, and then Jeff will also lead us in the congregational team purpose. And we talked about this last time as a smaller group. And what we said was, I think we did things kind of backwards at our last retreat. We pushed to get them to come up with a congregational purpose statement. And the challenge with that is they didn't even know who they were yet as a team. Here's what I'm going to recommend, coaches, is that you ask them, did they develop this statement? Is it more applicable to what they do as a congregation vitality team, or the whole congregation, or both?
Now, I can tell you, since our last meeting, I've both had a coaching session, and I've also, of course, with my own congregation, and Cindy wasn't able to be there. So on both of those, we hammered out congregation purpose, team purpose statements.
Okay.
So they have, neither one is quite 12 words. One of them is a baker's dozen.
Yeah, you shared that with me. I liked it though. It's good.
Yeah, and so some of the others. So 2 of your congregations, that's been the big work they've done the last month, is really getting clear on why are we doing this?
Team.
Yeah, the team purpose. piece.
So you're saying you also did that with Manson?
I did it with Augustine and Manson, and then
Okay.
we were meeting and Cindy was ill.
Yeah.
St. Paul's.
Right.
And we decided to keep meeting, so I slipped a little bit into how do we want to spend our time. And I really found the conversation with Nancy last time clarifying for me in terms of just what's this path. And I said, I think I asked us to revisit St. Paul's purpose statement and say, I think we're kind of, I said, we're going to get back to congregation purpose, but we maybe need to say, what's our purpose investment here as a team? And they really dug into that. I forget how we broke down, but they did work with it pretty hard. So 2 congregations are pretty clear on, 2 teams are pretty clear on their team purpose.
I really appreciate it. I know that Trinity, when Bruce was unable to, Brian, I have to get my coaches right.
Mm-hmm.
Brian was unable to come. Trinity met and worked on their purpose statement as well. And theirs is like 8 words or something like that. It's really cool. And remind them that this can be, it's an evolving thing. Please don't put this in cement and say, this is it. This is our purpose, and we're not changing it, because I served a congregation that after every Sunday worship service, they read their purpose statement. Well, after a while, it just became, everybody knew what it was, but it didn't mean anything. It was just like reading something out of a book. So remind them that as this is an evolving, kind of a growing and changing thing, but purpose statement. I think it'd be good to spend 45 minutes. And let's say that your congregation already has a purpose statement that they have come up with and are comfortable with. You might begin then working with them on, how do you see us making this visible to our church community? In other words, how does, like when the council meets, how does their agenda work around this purpose statement? Can we figure out a way to kind of bring the two together so that this is owned by all the ministries in this church and not just this vitality team? Now, there will be churches that aren't there yet. There'll be churches that are still spinning and going, we don't have.
But now that's where I'm getting unclear again.
Okay.
Okay, so it feels to me when you're doing that, you're beginning to talk about congregational purpose statement.
So at this retreat, if they have it, what I'm telling you, if they already have a team purpose statement and they have a congregation vitality statement, and they've moved beyond this already, I don't want us to hold them captive.
Right.
I want to have another activity for them to work on during this time. So let's say that they put this together, but they're not sure whether it's team or whether it's they want to roll this out to the whole congregation. Then have that conversation. Do you think this is more, again, a coach is reflective. Do you think that this statement that you have come up with is really more about us as a team here, you as a congregation team, or is this about what you hope the whole congregation does? And when they come up with that, then you work on the opposite.
Right.
Okay? And if they already have a team and a congregational purpose statement and they've got this and they know what they're doing, I don't want to make them feel like they're wasting their time.
I agree.
So that's what I'm saying. If they have already gotten to that point, this would be another exercise that you could work with them to say, how do you see this statement?
Let me tell you about the two congregations that I'm connected with, because of inputs I've been giving, which is, I said, after our last meeting, I've clearly been telling people, we're gearing you up to collect information at this next retreat so that they can work on congregational purpose ultimately in a retreat with you.
Okay, good. Yeah.
And that's the next phase. So what you're setting up there, if I did that with Augustina, they would go, we thought that's why we were here.
Okay.
We're waiting for the process to, so I'm not sure that would.
Again, based on where the coaches have, I'm not going to say that you as coaches are the ones who are going to be in control of, you know where your congregations are at, right? So you're going to help me to know then what the next steps are for that congregation when I go to that retreat. Because if they've already developed, I don't want them to have to revisit that and spend more time on that.
Okay.
What I want them to do is figure out how they can utilize that in the congregation in terms of moving beyond this. I don't want to slow anybody down.
Right.
But I also don't want to make anybody that's way back here get lost.
Right.
So what I'm asking is that each of you as coaches know where your congregation is at in terms of, and if you don't, just ask them. So we've developed this purpose statement. Do you see this more as for yourselves as a team or for the whole congregation? And then invite them to work on the opposite. If they see it as we thought this was supposed to be for the whole congregation. Okay, so is your purpose as a team different, do you think? And then have them work on that. And then let me know where they're at so that when I do have that time at the retreat with them, that I can work beyond, meet them where they're at and get them beyond that. Because again, each of the 8 congregations right now are at very different places. Yeah. I can tell you from my talking to the coaches, some are still way behind and some are doing really good.
See, we haven't, Augustina hasn't, for whatever reason, done much congregation-wide activity beyond the assessment.
Okay.
And they're pretty good at doing devotions. Their spirituality is maybe kind of standard, but it's there. You know, in terms of praying at every meeting and, you know, that kind of engagement. You know, so that's, if I was using that time as a coach, I would say, okay, this is probably the place, because by that time they'll look at what everybody else has been doing, you know, in the time. That would probably be I'm guessing, well, we didn't get into this or that, you know, so that would be the stage that they would be wanting to pick up on, might be.
Good.
So,
And I see Augustana as, they were there when they started. They had, I went to their council meeting and they had a group of people who prayed before we even introduced this process. And when I did the Bible study there, this is how I gauge things. When I did the Bible study there, did the, you know, what do you notice, what do you wonder? They were fully engaged and even brought other Bible passages in it. And I went, wow, this is so cool.
Yep.
So yes, that's their strength already.
Yeah.
I mean, you can always grow in that.
Yeah.
And make it more, how do you apply this to the congregation and help others grow? But there are other areas that they may need to focus more on.
well, I think it's what's coming up for them, which is learning about the community, and it's learning, you know, and that's what I'm kind of anxious to see them get into, is how do you do these one-on-ones? Who are you going to talk to in your community? You know, learning that kind of context.
No pressure, Grant.
Yeah. You know,
He says they'll benefit most from the one-to-one training and how well you do with that. So.
yeah. And
Well, and also feel free to jump in.
and also Brian's thing on mapping their community.
Right.
I think that's going to be really important.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Okay, thank you. So does everybody kind of understand what my hopes are for that time as they do the purpose?
Does anybody utilize this?
I've not used it.
I haven't.
I couldn't use it as an outline in that, but.
We
Yeah.
do have some parallel
Yeah.
resources for mapping out what we're doing in this 6 months in our books. And I've used some and not others. So that's maybe something to.
I want to share this again with them. There's some really good stuff in here, and it includes the part about purpose statement for the team. So I'm just going to make a copy.
No,
Because I'm meeting with them Sunday. I think they've done some of this, but I also want to just use it as an outline for them to follow.
In there, it makes it sound like that we should report to you at the time when we get that done.
After the retreat, what I'd like to do is after the retreat, if you take notes, and then let me know where each congregation is at with your coaching, so that I think I have, from the conversations that I've had from both members of the congregation and coaches, I think I have a pretty good, and pastors, I have a pretty good idea of where the different congregations are at, but I can be wrong in my assessment too. So if you hear stuff, it'll help me when I pack. My retreat is going to look different for every congregation too, just so you know, because they're not all going to be working on the same stuff. And that's how you're going to help me focus on what the retreat for your coaching congregation is. Okay?
And so then before the November retreat, you have an individual retreat with each congregation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. I just all of a sudden
Okay.
panicked because I forgot what month it was. I'm like, wait, isn't it coming up? No, it's only March, Jeff. Don't panic.
All right.
And
Um,
PTS.
And that is with the team or with the team and the council?
The team and the council is what we had agreed upon.
And
Because
what-
what I hope to happen is to incorporate some kind of interconnectedness of the team and the council in their leadership. Not the same, but so that the team says to the council, here is our purpose statement, here are our goals. Would you be, because the whole council and the whole congregation agreed to allow this team to come forward. They make recommendations to the council and then say, would you be willing to help us to see how these things can be applied? Like when you were leading the council meeting, how this can be kind of a framework for the work that we do together. See what I'm saying?
Okay, so beyond that goal, what else is happening in that whole retreat? Is that
It depends on the congregation and their needs.
Okay,
Some will be retraining for one-to-one, some will be working on building community, some will be working on, and what I will do is have a conversation and look at your responses to what they have said, whatever will be most helpful in terms of their exercises and fun things and interactive things to do. And that's the kind of leadership, when I come to the council, I'm not going to sit down and give them a presentation on something and sit here now for 5 hours and listen to this. That's not what I plan to do.
When are you going to be doing that?
and do the coaches go
In
with?
the summer or fall?
Well, so we'll be done in April. So if any congregation, let's see, the next one is in November. Last time I did it between September and November, right? September, October, November. So that's 3 months, and there's only 8 congregations.
We're going to do those ones together. Is it Bethel and Faith? We're going to do it together.
They
We
can.
talked about
I
that
think-
possibility.
Yeah, I think we'll talk more about that because they have the joint parish ministry, and I think this affects that as well. So I may come to them and ask them to meet together and then say, here's how this is affecting you as a parish, right? And these are related to the parish things. And now what I want you to do is, Faith, I want you to work on these things and give them something to do, an exercise to do, and so that I can separate their the kind of issues that they'll have to work on independently.
Then the coaches have to come.
The coaches will be my facilitator because I have 2 coaches for those congregations. I can't split myself in half. So what I'll do is I'll say, this is something that I would like. Now, in the event you're unable to come, because it's highly likely you'll have a conflict of schedule, I'll ask if anyone else is able, or I can bring in someone else to help me. Because the things that I'm going to do, I can just show somebody how to do it.
Is this going to be on Saturday then? Likely?
I would prefer a weeknight or a Saturday.
And it's how many hours?
Well,
Nancy's model was 5 hours.
yeah.
Okay, then
But-
you probably don't want a weeknight.
No.
I understand the need for flexibility. I'm wondering a little bit how you're seeing, we're sort of trying to get this cohort of congregations into a shared journey
Mm-hmm.
that has not an end for us, not an end for them, but a certain point to where they're ready to hopefully fly.
Right.
So how does all this flexibility in terms of what happens for this retreat relate to where we're hoping to get at the end?
So are you talking about the one that I do with them?
Yeah.
So here's what I hope to happen. Nancy has like 1 and 2 retreat together and 3 and 4 together, so that the group in the second cohort says to the first cohort, you can do this. The group in the third cohort for the 4th one says, they talk to each other and share their successes. What I hope is in this individual cohort, to have congregations share, these are things that remember when I talked to you about that poster board? These are things that we've tried, these are things that went well, these are things that didn't go well, so they can share those experiences and learn from one another. And we may be able to build that into the 3rd retreat, or for sure by the 4th
I'm talking about
retreat.
the retreat you lead with councils.
Yes. So,
Okay.
but then that gives them a more detailed focus on what areas are their strengths and what areas they need to work on.
Okay. Because I've been seeing it as this is a time when we get a lot of material together, and then you come and help us with a process of saying, okay, now how does this come into focus as a congregation purpose?
Mm-hmm.
So that you kind of get that group hammering out that purpose statement. And then what I heard from Nancy last time, which I really like, is now you're ready to go into work. How are you going to implement this?
Right.
Okay. How is this going to start showing up on the ground in what you're doing, what you're prioritizing? And that
Which is why I need you as coaches to tell me where they're at with their purpose statements.
Right.
Because it may be that I have to help them develop those purpose statements in relationship to where they're going.
Right. And so, but I also wonder if coaches a little bit also something, not exactly chiding, but sort of helping to, I'm finding more and more my role is sometimes as a coach is to say, okay, you're experiencing all of this is where we're at in the process. We might be a little behind, we might not be ready for this, but we're the ones to kind of say, we're the pathfinder, kind of trail boss, kind of saying this is in this framework, this is what's coming next. And you may work on this in some particular ways related to your particular context, but because what I'm picking up from a little bit from people is we're doing a lot of things, maybe have to do a lot of things, but we don't quite know how it all fits together, which was my experience going through the church training.
And again, honestly, even when we got done and we started putting this together, for some of you, until you heard Nancy's piece of putting it all together, it didn't make sense.
Yeah, it didn't.
And I think that's when you need to say to people, I understand what you're saying, because I took 2 years of this training and I didn't get it.
Right.
Don't worry about that. Continue to trust this process. Do the things we ask you to do, invite you to do. And at the end of this process, it will make sense to you. And if it doesn't, we'll continue working with you until you have a purpose and an understanding of what you're supposed to be doing. For me, generally, I always say I'm probably an oversimple theologian. For me, generally, here is my end goal, and it's different than Nancy's. My end goal for congregations is that they understand the Great Commandment and the Great Commission and how that relates to their ministry and their purpose in that place. That is my big picture, if you will, in a simple nutshell. Do you understand how God is calling you as a congregation first to love God? How are you doing that? Are you doing devotions? Are you spending time in prayer? And then as an individual in congregations, are there opportunities for Bible studies? Are there opportunities for you to grow spiritually? Are there opportunities for you to look into the community and make those available to places? I think about Ashes to Go in Sioux City, how that opened up to the whole community. I have mixed feelings about Ashes to Go, but what that did is it broadened the spectrum. This isn't just for us in our church, right? To help them then apply how this fits then in their community, how does this loving God and loving neighbor thing work? And then the commissioning is get yourself out of this building. Worship God here, but leave here to serve God. And honestly, I would say of all the congregations I've visited, I can see congregations that do one piece very well, or none of it well, or maybe 1.5. But I've not seen congregations that get it all put together. And I see congregations that are working towards that Great Commission, Great Commandment together that are growing. I see congregations that are turned inward, that are dying. The whole point for me, of this process is to teach people that there's not a magic bullet, right? This is not a program. This is a ministry, and it's a process. So
it would, I think, be helpful as in your role on the Synod team and kind of leading of us, if at one of our gatherings,
I think I could.
If you said it exactly like that, this is.
In a nutshell.
Yeah, in a nutshell, it's just that kind of thing, and and I know one of the things I found I'm very good at presenting. I'm struggling a little more with the coaching, being as effective at that.
That's because your leader failed to train you to be good coaches, and I'll share more about that.
I don't think it
takes no, but what I'm saying is I learned. Okay?
Yeah.
There is a skill that is learned in being a coach. I've had 4 years of developing that I haven't thought about the fact that if you've not had this training and not done this, it's hard. It's really, really hard for coaches to listen and not say, oh, let me tell you what you could do different. Right. Or let me tell you what I do. Or
that's not where I'm struggling as a coach.
Okay.
Where I'm struggling as a coach is having enough perspective myself on that pathfinder, that overall journey, to be able to kind of accompany. I got to know the path so I can accompany them on the path they're going on. And so and so as we've been finding, and we're learning as we go, as we find our way, that's why I'm pushing a little bit for there to be some signposts on that path that I'm able to point to and say, this is, and if people go, well, we don't want to do that, I say, okay, well, what do you want to do? How we can adapt this, but with that. So
if people say we don't want to do this, look at their purpose statement and then just ask them, so of the things that we've shown you, what things do you think would help you to work towards that? And again, it's a reflective and a challenging, and sometimes we have to be a little bit, I don't want to say mean, but we have to challenge congregations and leaders and people.
I'm not seeing a problem with that. It's not like I'm getting people saying, the only reason I said that was a congregation might say this doesn't suit us, or it's not what we're interested in, and a team. And you might be able to say, well, okay, this is not a one-size-fits-all thing, but there is, I think, a path that we're trying to call people toward that you may do in a slightly different way, but with that. And so for me, coaching is just learning to have enough of a sense of where the process is that I'm able to be not just trying to set the agenda or say, well, this is what we should do tonight, but being able to say, okay, this is what's before us now. How do you want to go with that? And let them work at it and be reflective. I know how to do that.
Okay.
It's just, anyway, we're taking enough time on that.
No, it's okay, because I think we're talking about process, and I've heard concerns from other coaches. I've heard concerns just regarding that whole piece of, I will say this, I have been doing this for 4.5 years, and renewal redevelopment ministry that St. John went through 4 years ago is similar but different than what we're doing now. Okay? There are so many things that I have learned along the way that, because it doesn't fit neatly in a box, it's not a program, there are things that I have adapted to fit the Synod and try to help, in our context. And you as team and coaches can help me if you say, I'm not sure this is helpful. Because then I'll ask for clarity. What do you not find helpful? So if you're still struggling with understanding the bigger picture, I need to know that. And if you need help with learning how to coach, I need to spend time with you to help you with that, because you are the thing that will make this successful or not. Well, not the sole thing, but yeah.
So on September 1st, 2009, St. John called David Bergstrom as an intentional interim for a 3-year contract. And it is then, and prior to that, at the time, the DEM was Roger Croix.
Yep.
And Neil Harrison got involved. St. John was dying. There were people showing up. It was just sad. And there was no excuse for them to be dying, except they were so inward curved, they couldn't see the trees for the forest. In those 3 years, what David did was help them renew their passion for their congregation. They were not outward focused at all. They had an albatross of $250,000 debt that had been sitting on them for 20-some years. And what he instilled in them was a passion for walking forward, paying this dumb thing off, so that when I came, and then he left on August 31st, 2012, I was called in January of 2013, started March 1st. And when I got there, that debt had been whittled away to $134,000. So it was cut in half. Really did some good work. And they had started to focus on, well, maybe we need to start now being a little more intentional on looking out at the community. That was my role. That is still my role, because it is so easy for a congregation to turn in on itself. And so my role is constantly, every sermon, the Great Commission is brought up. Your job, yesterday, I talked about, that God loved us first. And our response, God so loved the cosmos. The creator of the universe loves us so much that God came to us as Jesus. And so our response to that is to tell others about that love, that the world doesn't want them to hear about that love. So then you're starting to outward focus. The struggle is to get so complacent. I mean, now it's like, well, we got money in the bank, not a lot, but we're paying our bills. We're not wondering if we're going to have to choose to pay the light bill or the pastor's salary. Thank you, Jesus. Because the pastor really needs her salary to pay the light bill. And, and things like that. But it's also get out and invite people. I'm always telling them to invite. And we have 2 new families coming again with little kids. And it's because they've been invited. And so what is the overall purpose? Jeff said it perfectly, the great commandment of loving one another, loving God, loving others, loving ourselves. And I always say that's joy. Jesus, others, you. And then going and telling, teaching, and and stuff. So to me, my job, my role as coach for St. Paul is to help them burst out of what can we do for our congregation, and instead what can we do as the congregation of this community. That's going to be the struggle, because they're inward focused.
They're still inward focused.
Yeah, right. So they're not unique, but what I like about the team I'm coaching is they are willing to listen. That's
and
huge.
you've got at least two on that team who want, they're anxious to do the community mapping and the one-to-one training.
Right, and that's
because they want to get out. They've already got it. We want to get out and talk to our community.
Right.
So you've got that there. But the culture of the congregation is very institutional.
I heard it explained last week about, as Lutherans, and this was to pastors, we're very good at exegeting biblical texts and everything. Now, how do we exegete the community?
Yep.
Yeah.
Study the Greek of the
Good
community.
phrase, yeah.
I've been working on that for 20 years because that's not what you're taught in seminary.
Right.
And in 20 years, look at how much your community has changed.
Yeah.
Even if you think you got something that's like, 3 years later, some big building project where there's people exodus or influx.
There is some talk that the budget crisis is going to lead to the closure of 30 courthouses. Possibly, our prison is one of our big employers too. We're looking possibly at layoffs.
Mental health facility.
And so we're looking at huge changes.
Is this what you
Cindy was talking about Pastor Bergstrom. He followed,
Yeah.
left your congregation, came to ours,
Yeah.
and did similar things. But I see so many things in this vitality that I'm taking back to our congregation, and hopefully we can revitalize that part of it too.
Right.
We've come a long way, but so much farther we need to go.
And I got such an interesting take on Pastor Bergstrom because I think he was a rock star for those 3 years, because he pulled them kicking and screaming into solvency, and he did what I consider the perfect work of an interim. They were so glad to see him go when he went. They were ready for the next pastor. and it wasn't him. It was the work he did. I am reaping a whole lot of what he sown. And I think sometimes we forget that, and stuff, but.
We were near the depths of hell, our congregation, when he came.
They were thinking of yoking with 2 littler congregations who were actually worshiping about the same amount of people.
So as a everybody has a kind of a pet peeve in language. When people say they're worshiping the same amount of people, I always think that's part of the problem. They're worshiping people.
Yeah,
Um,
I know, and you know, I picked that up in seminary. I never had said that phrase before seminary. I don't know of a good way to replace it. If I can find a good phrase to replace it, Jeff, I'll cheerfully, at least in your presence, do so.
Thank you.
No, I love you.
Did we ever get to the end of the,
No, in fact,
I threw us off.
that's all right. What I'm looking at now is I'm printing the case study part because we haven't talked about that at all. And what I think we need to do is to spend some serious time talking about that part because I'm trusting that all the rest of this is, you know, the table talk with the coach, the missional consciousness. Jim is presenting that. We take a break, and then there's this piece called case study with coaches, and I'm printing that right
I
now.
like that. Dumb question number 423. So we've moved up a couple of spots. Is all of this stuff in that wonderful binder you gave me back in November?
What we're talking about now is not.
Okay.
I sent out an email with the Dropbox link that has, it was called Indiana Kentucky Synod
That's what, yeah.
link to.
And I don't delete anything from you
Okay.
because it just takes a while.
what about the survey? You said you were gonna get the results. Have you gotten them? Possibly.
For the congregations that have sent them in, I received one more since our last gathering and I did not send that out. I'm better check and see what.
You have anything from St. Paul?
I think that's me. Whoops. Sorry, I can't exit this meeting without leaving.
You can tell me.
No, later.
You don't leave me to look at it.
All right. Well, we'll take a break here in a little bit, and when we do that, I'll look it up. So I need to look up who has Congregation Vitality links for their surveys. This is being printed currently for the. Are you sending her that Dropbox? Oh no.
No, I can,
Oh, that's
but
okay.
what I'm sending out is the agenda, the invitation, and the question packet, so that y'all can look at it and decide where you want what questions.
Okay. One thing I've had a hard time opening your stuff, Jeff, and I don't know why. So when you are in Carroll today, let's go find out why my Dropbox isn't reading your Dropbox, okay?
Sure.
Because I feel, I gotta tell you, and I know it's because I have said I'm not gonna be on this coming here kind of thing, and here I am. But I feel like I stepped in the midst of a game that I don't know quite what's being played. So,
Sounds like what Jim just said.
you always have the best words for me.
Okay. So we are at
Come down to Atlantic, come to fuck you, that would be fun.
I'm still waiting for that pastoral visit.
Jeff Swanson will do after lunch. Jeff Swanson will do congregational team purpose, and again, we talked about that. The table talks with the coach will be about that, and then missional consciousness. Jim is leading us in that. We'll take a break, and then there's this thing called case studies with the coaches. And again, I'm printing those right now, so I think we need to spend the remainder of the time that we spend together today on that case study, because it's an important piece and everybody kind of needs to know how to do that. What I'm going to recommend at this point is that I did invite my wife to bring us lunch at noon, so I don't know, did anybody not plan on staying until 1?
I have to leave at 12:30
Okay.
because you're coming to my place.
Say, Jeff,
Yeah.
what was the purpose? We filled it out. What was the purpose of this?
I am in the process.
Was
I
there a
had
purpose?
to, yes, I had to give those to Linda Bobbitt in Colorado so that she could, when we have, at the end of this process, they'll also do that
Do it
again.
again, okay.
You only print one?
It printed 3, which I thought was odd.
I told it to print 6 with copy, or with staples. Now what'll happen is it'll pull those other ones in.
Is this just one?
No, it's only one page of, okay, well, I'll look at that at lunch too, I guess.
I have page 1 if you want to send the rest. How many pages should it be?
My term ended and I just, something had to give in my life, but I still want to
I got the ex-conference dean wanting to visit me, Jeff, stop that.
I didn't say a word. Did I?
God forgive me, you said Linda Bobbitt, and I went right to Loretta, and I'm just, they're all giggling.
You should have a program.
They're related, no, no. Cousins.
Oh, gosh.
Oh, yes. Okay, thank you.
I forgot about that.
Julie, there should only be that front and back sheet, so there should be like 3 more up there, or whatever, because there's only 6 slides.
Did she get up quite a lot? I can't remember. She was sentenced to jail for that.
I don't think she went to jail, I think she had community service,
Community.
and, they cut it short.
Who are we talking about? Who are we talking about? Who are we talking about?
Loretta Bobbitt, do you
You
remember her?
got a flashback about 15, 20 years.
Okay.
Oh, 20 for sure.
Must be 20.
I'm thinking even longer, because I think Johnny Carson was,
Mm-hmm.
had him on.
You need something to talk about.
So,
Yeah, you just tell me how old
Pastor Denise just sent out to everybody the email with the agenda, the long agenda, right?
Right.
The invitation sheet, I should say, with the agenda, the long agenda, and then the letter, the questions for our session when you're coaching to ask them.
Not when you're coaching. These are the notes for the packet that people get for the take notes on this side, answer these questions at the end.
Okay.
So for whatever you're coaching, if you have questions and you want to leave 5 or 10 minutes at the end of your teaching session for these questions to discuss, turn to your neighbor and talk about these, or answer these questions, or whatever. We used them in the first retreat for further learning. I didn't give you a page, Bruce.
That's fine.
Okay,
The invitation, you're saying you're gonna email that out to
that's,
folks.
To the pastors
To
of
the-
each of the 8 congregations.
Not to the pastors only, and the team of the pastor.
Well, I'm gonna email the pastor and ask them to give them to their team members, because I don't want to be responsible. Well, I do have everybody's email, don't I?
I don't care, I just ask.
I'll have to think about that, but one way or the other, they will have
And
an
shortly,
invitation.
within this week.
Yes, yes.
that was one of the feedbacks we got.
Was they didn't have enough lead time to,
make their preparations.
yeah.
Sure.
I also should ask them in that though, maybe if they're, well, I guess it doesn't matter if they're commuting or going to the hotel, as long as I know what their heater's doing, so.
I think the people from, they all turn
Mhm.
They went back.
And I was impressed, by the way, with the commuters, that they were back in the morning and ready to roll. I was very, very happy with that last time. So,
If it's all right, I'm probably gonna give a little more permission to my team, to commute, because we're a little less subject to bad weather
This time.
in April.
at this time.
Mhm.
And they're kind of, familiar with that process, but I think I had 1 commuter or 2 commuters, and they did a good job with that.
Yes, they did, and so did your congregation. Are you talking about your congregation
St.
or okay? Because all of Augustana drove.
Right.
Um,
And they have 14 more miles to do.
the only thing is, again, and if that's what they want to do, if they want to save money, I understand that. That's great. The only thing is they're more tired too because
Right.
of the extra.
Right.
There are benefits and drawbacks. The
I'll
benefit
give them
is
the trade-off, but
the benefit is that they talk about this stuff on the way home and on the
Right.
way in the morning too. Hopefully, I doubt they do, but
Well, we've been investing, my team has been, St. Paul's team, I should say, has been investing a little bit of money in off-site retreats as each time they meet.
Okay.
So
Because their coach is anal about that.
no, they like doing it.
Yeah. Get out of the building. Get out of the building.
We got Twin Lakes, so
So go to Twin Lakes. It's really nice.
So I'm going to pause our meeting here, and then we'll just take hopefully a 5-minute, just till noon. And when we gather back together, hopefully I'll have lunch coming. So I'll find out about that. I'll also check anything that you needed me to find out for you. Oh, the vitality surveys, and Jim had a question for me too.
I'm gonna ask you to print this off so that we can take questions.
Okay. You mean in our conversation?
So we can, yeah, because I would kind of like to do this.
Okay.
Okay, this is the new.
Yeah, these are the new, this is their homework
So what should we, so we should have a staple sheet, single sheet.
in a single sheet.
They should have a sheet that says
And then just-
retreat to EKG, the discipleship activities, and one that says the agenda.
I have only the retreat. Now I have the case study. There's only one page to the case study.
There's one page to the case study.
Did you have that?
I do.
I
You're
got
right,
that.
that should not say agenda.
No.
So are they gonna be receiving this prior to?
That will be part of their packet.
Okay.
They received that the last day.
Oh, by the way, yeah,
Bruce is referring to the discipleship activities.
Right.
they'll be
Oh, sorry.
sent with them as they leave for the next 6 months.
Which is that discipleship activities.
It's the stapled one.
Excellent.
That's the homework sheet.
Gotcha, okay.
Looks pretty clear to me.
Okay, so now the one that's marked, the one that has the questions on it is marked notes instead of agenda. Not agenda.
Do we have any time to, on given presentations, to edit these questions as our presentations come together?
I think that's what you're inviting.
That's what
Them
I'm
to do right
inviting
now.
you to do, even as we speak.
Okay. All right.
Because these questions are just placeholders from last time. They aren't even appropriate
Yeah.
for the session we've got.
Since I haven't worked on the presentations yet, but will be in the next few days, I'm thinking I'm ready to take questions once I know what I present.
Okay,
I'm guessing I can imagine.
I don't have that one.
Asking, you know.
So do you think-
Thank
Do
you.
you think that this requirements for before doing session 3, retreat 3 are acceptable?
I like them.
Okay, good.
This
Gives us something concrete
is
to work on.
concrete, and even if people are feeling a little behind, I feel this with Augustana too. They're ready to go. They just need things a little more cut and dry. You know, to say this is the at least a starting point in the process. If they want, they can adapt. But they need something that's easily pointed to. And maybe their coach needs it too.
And well, I can tell you that again, that from my going around, there are things that I've learned I need to do. But I know that, like, for example, I would not have a problem. Shameen is working with the congregation that she's doing on the daily devotional practice. So, I mean, that's one that they go, hey, we've done that, and mark that off, right? I mean,
Exactly.
so, yeah.
The other thing I've been telling, just, especially with my coaching, I keep telling them, I said, you know, you guys are the guinea pigs a little bit. We're all learning how to put this process together, and your coach is learning how to facilitate you, you know, and so there's some, you know, so there's we're trying to do it in a high quality way, but there's some learnings going on at all levels, and sort of thanking them for the patience as we go through it,
Sure.
you know, together. And I'll be introducing the St. Paul's Council tomorrow night, getting them used to the idea that they should be expecting to give a Saturday to a retreat sometime in the summer or the fall.
That's what you want to hold to, is a
Yes.
Saturday from 9 to 3, or
Any time Saturday that is conducive to their schedules. Just have them email me with like 2 or 3 different dates, and
Could I suggest, it might help if you were to.
you told me that last time. So I give the dates.
Yeah,
I'm available.
I find sometimes with setting a date, if you say these dates, and then if they say, well, none of these work, then you can say, well, what works for you? And I'll see if I can adapt. You know, but otherwise, the process gets started, you know,
I do,
and then we can.
but I don't know how many congregations do. Do you know what Doodle is?
Doodle?
Yeah. It's
I do it sometimes on the
it is an online calendar poll
Right.
for your participants, so that I would send out and say, these are the Saturdays that I'm available from this time to this time. So you choose which, and if you choose which ones you would like. And there could be more than one congregation on any given Saturday, but I could then say, okay, this congregation on this Saturday, this Saturday.
Let's use it like that.
But I'm wondering if everybody knows how to do that.
what's a link is as long as they know to click a link.
Yeah. Okay. You think it's simple enough that they can do it?
And
My
we could
secretary
you could maybe
doesn't-
introduce that.
Council secretary can do it, and she's very, very basic on
Okay.
computer. She just knows it's a link, and then
Yeah, if I learned how to do it.
Yeah, so you could kind of introduce that and put that link up at the retreat, at our next event. And then people could start to say, okay, we gotta get this. And
You think I'm that organized, Jim?
that saves a lot of time. I mean, it's just one email and that's it, and then you can send reminder emails if people don't participate. And,
Yeah.
And I say,
well, I wish I would have known that. I'm trying to pull together a hiring team meeting for a new youth leader between us and Lytton. And trying to get them all on a common date. And so,
if possible, yeah.
well, I'm trying to get them to suggest that they know their schedules better than I do.
Wow, right now, this is unbelievable. But my weekends between September and the retreat are wide open. That's
You don't say
totally,
that.
I mean, my Saturdays, not every weekend, but my Saturdays.
I'll report that tomorrow night and get them to pick a Saturday.
Yeah, I mean,
So you're shooting for September through,
yeah, September through the next retreat is scheduled November 9th and 10th. So it'd have to be the first week in November.
So you want September and
September.
October.
September and October.
Yes,
So why don't we just list those Saturdays and have the congregations pick one?
perfect.
Because there's 8 Saturdays
Well, wait,
and 8
I would
congregations.
rather do the doodle poll so that they can pick 2.
Alright.
And that way, if there's 2 that have the same, I can say,
Well, I'll ask them for 2 of the Saturdays of the council tomorrow night. So that our team can bring them and we'll report them on the Google poll at the retreat
okay.
or whatever.
so don't do a June or July or.
I've just learned with St. Paul's, I gotta give huge amounts of notice if I want to get it. And even then sometimes.
I think we should require our vitality teams to get God's word guardians to insurance. It is
I'm, I know there's a way to do this, dang it.
For these first 3 bullet points, are they all outline for activities and binders.
Well, I'm hoping so because that's what we got. So let's see what's in the Dropbox. Am I still doing the binders? Jeff?
You did so good last time.
Oh, thank you. Oh, what a headache. Oh my God.
Well, that's, yeah.
But it's gonna be a headache for whoever does it, so,
Right.
I mean, it's just a matter of.
Actually, I personally believe,
My
look at
headache.
that. Why?
I've been there 3 times now.
So now
It's
you
a
have
conflict
you have
too,
24 retreats.
Yeah, it's a conflict because he's already aggravated.
I told it to do it once a week on Saturday from the first through, the first weekend in November. And on the 22nd, it has me down 3 times.
Okay, so.
You don't have to worry about dividing yourself in half, divide yourself out as a Trinity.
Okay.
What was that movie years ago? I forget which actor. It was one of the comedy actors where he was
Asset.
somehow able to copy himself. And then his copy made a copy of
It
the
kept
copy.
getting weaker and weaker.
Yeah.
It's the guy from, he played Batman,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Michael Keaton.
Michael Keaton.
I'll let my team
Okay.
Senate team tell me. You
This guy
realize
got getting more, not mentally, he wasn't
Okay.
very weak mentally at the end, he could hardly.
Right
Function.
now, it says the activity is in the binder. There is not an activity in the Dropbox. So that is up for you to
Okay, so the
design.
asset needs some sort of resource for them to.
And it might, for the asset discovery, it might simply be the instructions that you're using.
I think that's probably what it would be.
And
Change to 1-2-1.
1, 2, 1. Thank you. Okay. And then that also will need an outline. I'll just say outline for activity. And what you might want to add to that grant is a log of who they spoke to.
Part of,
And who was
at
there.
least potentially, the pattern, what I picked up from Nancy is that they're doing these things and collecting this material so that it's there for Jeff to draw on as in the retreat process, right?
which part?
The
All of these
community
things,
leader
so the
one.
community
Right.
leader one-to-ones, the
Exactly.
asset activities, the mapping the community.
Yes,
Do you get all that
Right.
as you prepare a retreat?
exactly.
And so I think that that's a part of the process to communicate when we're sharing these activities. I have to say in the last month, I mean, I was always excited about this, but I've been getting much more excited.
Oh, good,
As we move into this process.
good. I thought you were gonna say more anxious.
No.
I think part of it is, I mean, as I watch Trinity, for example, that team is growing.
Mhm.
And you can see that growth in a
Mhm.
team
Mhm.
that you're working with, and it's fun. And the excitement they still have, that's good,
Yeah.
right? So,
I have to say, I suffer though when I go to see the team that I'm coaching, because I find them very frustrating and disappointing to work with,
okay,
because they're totally not willing to do anything.
Mhm.
They're just dragging their feet. And it was an effort to get them to gather for a meal just as a team to do that. And they invited me, and it was within a week of when we had the monthly meeting. And so frankly, I was, and so I didn't go because I thought that would be a better idea. But I have this excitement from Trinity And I expect when I go see them that they will have a similar excitement, and they don't. And so I do suffer from that comparison, and I try not to, but you know, it's vitality. How can you not get excited about that? And you get together and it's, well, I don't know where my team members are. I don't have to, I'm not holding them accountable. Well, why not? You're a team. You hold each other accountable. That's what you do. And no.
That's sometimes, you know, when figuring out how to reflect back the what were your hopes? Why did you jump in?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
You know, and as a coach, that no pain, no gain kind of mentality.
I was thinking about that, Denise. If you let me know when the next meeting you have with them, I'm still trying to get with each of you as well, and just join you for one coaching session, either electronically or otherwise.
I can give you
But
that.
just so that I can kind of get on the calendar with you, I want to know whether what I have the same perceptions and whatever with you, and also they will have a little more. No, I have a little bit more oomph with them with regard to like with what you're talking about, saying, you know, as a congregation and as a team, this is what you agreed to do. Is something changed?
If you want to know, I'm at Manson again on the 27th.
And I think I'm on the 23rd of March. I'm not sure.
This month.
Okay, hi. March 27th, Jim?
6
Tuesday?
o'clock, 6 o'clock, Tuesday, 6. They're working through some reading.
I wonder whether they're considering at all how they can be a helper to their neighboring church whose pastor resigned.
The last time I was with them, that had just developed. And
Okay.
so they, you know, we spent a little time talking about, you know, that kind of thing.
When are you meeting again, Denise?
The Friday before, 23rd.
So,
Any other
I have
comments?
the 18th, which is this next Sunday.
Okay, let me get
I know, you gotta
yours
get
on
through that one first.
yours.
I think it's at 7 o'clock.
we're meeting, St. Paul's is meeting.
That's fine.
Oh, boy.
Are you going there?
Yes.
My St. Paul's.
Yeah,
You want
Are you both St. Paul's?
you want a carpool?
There are
Yeah.
so many St.
Yeah, there
Paul's.
is.
I know we were, when these churches were started, that, you know, we didn't get around quite as much because Iowa was muddy.
Bruce is
Yeah.
his
I have
name.
the 18th,
But
Sunday the
really,
18th.
you know, you've got
What time?
your name.
9:30.
And I'm not gonna be able to be there.
Some of
But
them
I have
have
baptism
CPS.
at
FS.
He's doing
Yeah.
a baptism.
Oh, that'd be more fun than me.
I'm so excited for you.
Yeah.
The team, I got an email back, email them, pastor is not gonna be there, she's got a niece or something's got a dance recital. And she said, it seems like I'm trying to avoid it, because the last time she was sick. But she has been very positive in getting back to me.
Good.
And the team is, they're doing a book study. They're doing real faith, I think, for real life. I think that's what they're doing. But they have been meeting. They had a lasagna supper at Lenten service this past week, I think. They were gonna have. And they're looking forward to seeing the survey, which maybe isn't done yet. And they're doing daily, and they're each doing, they were, you know, they need to start our daily devotions and stuff like that. So they're doing some things, and every time I've heard they've been positive.
Very good.
Looking forward to seeing something. And they'll be having a layperson doing services again. So, which is good that we have people willing to do that.
At some point, probably not now, it's more of our time, I need to ask you a question about one issue that is, we're sort of struggling with who sets the agenda, especially when we're at the meetings. You do? Okay. 'Cause I'm trying to stay in the mode of, I mean, I give them, this is where we're at in the process of the task here, but when I'm coming, I'm trying to not be the one running the meeting.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm the one who's holding them accountable.
Right.
Yeah, I
So
think they
I'm
have
the
two
one with
different
all the
set of
questions.
contexts.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say, Jim, ask them what, if they have an agenda and what that looks like, so
Okay.
you know what to expect when you get there.
Yeah.
And if they don't have one, suggest they have one.
But I've talked a little with Janelle about trying to smooth that out a little more.
Okay.
But
We remember doing this. We looked at this PowerPoint together. The case study. Is that big enough to read?
What is the case study? I don't see any. We can make it
Single
out.
sheet.
I know, but
Well, what it does is it invites them to pick something that
Okay.
they're
It's not like a-
currently doing in their congregation,
I just
and
glanced at
then apply some of our own.
my familiarity with a case study is you get something to read. And
Right, it's
this is
something
more of
else.
a congregational, what's happening in your congregation and you study it. Talk about it. Oh, doing things. Okay, I see it. First bullet point.
Yeah, and it's just to pick one to present to the rest of the group.
Right. Gotcha.
So how do you see this? We talked about this, but I'm trying to remember why we put this back in. I know we both said it was really important, but how much time do we have for that?
Case study is 2:30, and then it's 45 minutes.
And each of the coaches are to spend time doing this with their congregation, right?
Well, the coaches are only to act as facilitators. The team is supposed to do it by themselves.
during this time, or is this like?
And for 45 minutes, they pick one thing from their congregation that they're doing, and they evaluate it in the terms of the missional consciousness that you've just given them.
And they talk about the future of the
I'm
activity.
wondering
And is this,
if it would be helpful to get them thinking about that before they come. You know, to think about a ministry you're doing, you know, so, because I can imagine
Right.
it throwing this at them and going, I don't know what to think about, or like, you know, I don't want to do that.
okay,
You know, just maybe through our coaching, as we meet with them, say, there's gonna be something coming up with this next retreat. Come as a team, ready to talk about, it doesn't matter what, it can be any ministry, right?
Yeah.
If I'm understanding this right.
right.
You know,
Can even be
it's
something going on in the community.
Something going on in the community, something that's,
Wouldn't it?
you know, that, you know, just come with it in the front of your mind so that you can engage the process of what we're doing in relation to this thing happening in your life together.
Right.
Yeah.
What if they don't? I mean, I'm playing devil's advocate here, but what if they're like what you're talking about, where they can't even get together for a meeting,
Right.
and we invite them to do this, and they have nothing?
That'll be their case study.
Well, and I was
Why we're not
told
doing anything.
by the de facto leader of the group, we're not going to be that church that walks out of the doors. We just want to strengthen the relationships we have. So, and that was in, you know, after the meeting had already gone and everything had gone really well, and I was putting on my coat, and I hear this, right? And it's just like, wait, we need to talk about this, and we're on our way out the door.
How widely should that? One
Um,
person sort of.
Well, there are only 4 people on the team, and I suspect that this individual sets the
Well, then I think
the
it's,
goals.
I think it's.
yeah, it's a good idea.
I think it's needing Jeff to kind of
It is.
recircle back and say, okay, let's change
Yeah.
this last.
Because I'm starting to think not only are they not ready for Link 2, but they don't even want to go any further.
Right. Well, I think there's a point at which, you know, if that's truly the sentiment, you have to kind of at that point say, well, this is not the resource
Right,
for you.
We're
You're
just
not,
spinning
we're
our
not on the
wheels,
same page of what
and you're
we're aiming
wasting
for
my
here.
time.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. You know, and that covenant thing,
Right,
you know,
right.
Yeah, because
and get
the
them to
whole point
define
of this
that.
is to get you out of the doors.
Yeah, to get you to define that.
We're,
So-
we're
That's
not gonna,
interesting.
we're not gonna be that.
I would be, I mean, that we can have,
I would check that out a little bit.
yeah, there's something behind that too.
Mhm.
Yeah, so again, my question is, so we come up with this, we say that this is gonna be a time for the coach and the team to talk about something that you've done
Mhm.
in relationship to the missional consciousness that you presented. You present that, right?
Mhm.
And then talk about the future of those activities. This is part of the thinking about it in terms of the homework that you're
Right,
gonna
Maybe I'm
discipleship.
I'm only going by what I see here.
Okay,
I thought this is when I saw this, I thought this is a first effort by this team to think about the ministry of the congregation, not necessarily something they've done directly as part of this initiative, but thinking about their congregation ministry and begin to evaluate that in terms of that missional consciousness.
right.
You know,
Well, I'm wondering if it wouldn't be less threatening to present them with a written case study and then have the different groups all come up with, here's what we would do, oh, here's what we would do, oh, here's what we would do, oh, here's what we would do. And get the impression that as a church, we benefit from all these different perspectives on a single case study.
I guess
This is suggest that too.
I
For
agree.
me, a smaller step would be just to have a fictitious
Yeah.
to start with, just to get the juices flowing, and then maybe step into our own. But
Because then right after that is, the coach is there. So we can do a fictional case study for 10 or 15 minutes and then move them into, what are you doing in your
Or we
congregation?
have, or can we do something even more? Can we leverage the experience of Cindy's church and Estherville? Could we lift a case study out
She's in
of
Carroll.
well, I'm in Estherville,
Yeah,
and
okay.
she's
right.
Right,
her church.
right.
Was
Yeah.
not remembering. Because I think sometimes we do these fictional things and it's a little
Yeah.
idealized.
Too fictional.
Too fictional. If there's something, and help me if maybe I'm mistaking this here, but I'm particularly drawn to the tweak, begin, and or end. I'm assuming that that's where you look at this activity, you start thinking in terms of missional concepts. You know, God being in the lead of mission, serving a purpose within that mission. You know, that sometimes you say this thing we're doing is not serving that, so we end it. Or this thing we're doing could if we refocused it. Or there's this thing that we're called to do that we're not doing. We need to begin something. And I don't know if there's an experience. I mean, the community meal that Cindy keeps talking about at St. John's, would be some of this, but it might even be more interesting to look at churches that have said it's time to let this ministry go because we're called to something else.
What if we do 2 of them?
Yeah.
And so half the teams get
Mhm.
the ministry that we're supposed to let go.
Mhm.
The other half get the ministry that we want to keep going.
I'm fine
And
with
we
that.
evaluate them in terms of our mission and say, this doesn't suit our mission. We're not going to do this
But-
anymore. And see what the teams come up with.
But I'm wondering, in your experience, thinking in those terms, is there a story?
Oh, there's lots of stories. No, really, I mean, I'm not.
Because I would say that's a resource we have with 2 people on working with this process in congregations who are in a different model, a little farther ahead, to lift out your experience as a formal kind of case study, and then start asking people to think through their ministries in similar ways.
In some ways, our congregation is probably at the same position that some of you are, or even some of the, but where we were,
Mhm.
from where we were to where we are now, I mean, it's just night and day.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, we'd love to share some of that.
So would you be able to develop one case study?
Probably.
It would be interesting if you included in that case study the decisions of who could rent the building and under what circumstances.
Mhm.
Because that was huge in relationship to your mission. I know that when Estherville and Trinity decided to lease space for those rooms, it couldn't just be to anybody.
Mhm.
It had to be some kind of ministry to the community, some kind of mission.
You know, that's a great thing about stories about how we took our Sunday school, or our education wing, turned it into office space for mission. Casas in there. We have a Compass Point is in there, and then also we're renting space to the Latino Pentecostal church, and they meet twice. AA meets, Boy Scouts meet, but none of those things are happening 4 or 5 years ago. So that'd be that'd probably an example.
Yeah, but you know
How we can utilize our building.
Yeah,
our
and
church.
I would be inclined, coming back to Denise, one well-developed, you know, case study that really goes into some of the decision points, the issues, the process, and then asking people to say, what did you learn from this? What connections do you make, you know, in a real preliminary way to, you know, your ministries? Can you know, did this case make you think of something that's happening in our country, in your church's life? You know, that may be a starting point, you know, things like that.
And like Jeff said, you know, there's decisions made on who this could be rented. It
Right.
was going to be rented to the
So,
to certain groups. So.
I think I would be willing to work with you on that, Bruce, because I'm looking at it in terms of objectives. I think that we need to be clear why, in terms of helping them to see that in terms of their homework and the things they're being asked to do, mapping their community. CASA and what's the counseling group? Compass Point are part of that community that we're seeking a space, and that was part of mapping their community. So you see how these things that we're going to ask you to do led to where they're at.
Exactly.
I think you're right. I think that would be helpful. We're not asking you to duplicate what they did.
Right.
But what happened was first they began to look at their assets, what they had this building, and they didn't need it for Sunday school anymore. So what could they do to use this building? Give them a process of, so the next steps were making a decision about what to do with those rooms. Well, we have ministries, let's find out who might need that space and how we might use it. Then they had to decide who would they allow in, because they did have some that they didn't. I mean,
so you had to be clear, this isn't consistent with our purpose.
Exactly, exactly.
And you also had to figure out who in the community, who brought the needs to, you know, say that we're looking for this. So that entailed some kind of connection that we made, you know, and things like that. I think that really could be useful.
And I think that's helpful, except if you have a building, I thought about this like Trinity, that is not going to be conducive for rental or for use, and they see this as a model for what you can do. This is not a model for what you can do. This is a case study of how they took their mission statement and their vision and applied that then to that. So how in your context can you utilizing these things?
So the key thing is, in that case study, make sure that whatever your mission statement was is laid out there and how that connected. And then as coaches, we have to be ready to kind of, when we're sitting down with a group, asking to process this now, you know, kind of emphasize this isn't a one-size-fits-all model. This is, you see the connection between their purpose statement and the decisions they made, and you know, so on.
So this is starting to sound like a presentation.
I think it is. I think, Bruce, I think you're on for a presentation. And the reason I say that is because, I would work with you on that too, because I think this putting into action thing, there's an evaluation process that consistently and constantly happens in this rental that you have to look at. For example, the Latino ministry, you guys don't charge them currently, do you? Or, okay, they do.
But they offered, it's being done by the church-wide, whatever group they're with. It's not the local congregation paying it. It's someone else. So it's not like.
Yeah, they're putting.
And then there are hurdles in this too that we
absolutely
talk about.
And that's a part of that tweaking.
We had to take away the Christmas room from the lady that had done the decorations for 40 years and she wasn't happy. So we had to find her. I mean,
So there's a
for
letting-
example, there are some things that
There's a letting
it
go
isn't-
there.
It isn't like it's all sunshine.
I-
We had to put air conditioning in because there was no air conditioning.
I like this being the sending piece, the last piece, because we're making them think about missional purpose.
Yeah.
And this case study that we're giving them helps them to think about how they could then begin this process.
And as coaches, it gives us something to refer back to as we start to walk with them through doing this work themselves. You know,
And-
anytime you have a concrete story, you can kind of come back to it
Right.
and say, it's not the same, but you remember the steps they went through. You know?
What's fascinating, I would rather not volunteer the community meal from Carol, except to tell them that this is possible in your own context, because what they do is they use the Thrivent funds for and that's how they pay for that meal. It's not out of their congregational budget. And they feed 250 to 350 people each time they do this. I mean, it's huge.
You know, just another point here is talking about the cost of that. We receive around 500 from the Latino ministry, 75, I think it's $75 a room. But anyhow, our income is like $1,200 a month from these. And that money is used for improvements to the church.
To the building and maintenance for the.
And if we need something else, we could take money from it, but it's mainly that helps.
They bought air conditioners for the rooms they're renting. So
Actually, that was another example.
Is
The
it
people that.
So we'll develop that together and use that as a
My
case
only
study.
anxiety with anytime we start to focus on buildings, people immediately go inside again.
Sure.
Yeah, but that's.
And I'm glad you said that, because what we'll do is we'll focus more on how did they find these people
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
and how did they find out the need of these people.
It's inside, but it is outside, because all of these
It's-
groups are from outside.
They identified one of their assets as a property that's not being used.
Exactly.
And how could this be used unto God's glory? And that's how.
Yeah.
So yes, thank you for saying that, because that would be important.
I wouldn't put a lot of emphasis on the financial part of it.
Right.
That is.
That's part of it.
It is a part of it, though.
Yeah.
So
That's gonna be a question.
You know, questions of relationship and things like that.
Right.
Anyway,
Right.
so I'm gonna have to be moving.
I think we're really close to the end anyway. If you would please get your presentations done when you can. The deadline, the soft deadline is next Sunday. I'm going to have those printed as they come in, so we have them ahead of time. I'll print them. She's going
It
to.
might be, I'll commit
Am
myself.
I putting together
Put
the
it-
Dropbox? I mean, I'm
Yeah.
putting together the folder that you
Yeah.
will put in the Dropbox.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll aim for Sunday, but I think it might be end of business Monday.
Do you remember when we went to the retreats too? There were some things that were changed in the presentations from the PowerPoint thing you had. That's okay. Don't feel like once you send us in, you can't
Just watch.
change anything.
Right, because
So,
Fran had
I
a whole
would've said
PowerPoint
this,
that turned into one slide when you did the baptismal thing. Remember you showed us a picture of the baptismal fund, but you had sent a PowerPoint.
Oh, yeah.
So we had a whole
Oh, it was
PowerPoint
my
for that, and you
picture
just
of
turned
the
it into
baptismal
one
fund.
slide.
It was from my
Yeah.
computer. It's one of
Yeah.
Did you ever find out if the survey?
I will. Since you're still talking, Bruce, you want to pray us out?
I will. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you again for this opportunity for us to gather with this vitality coaching team. We're thankful for all the blessings we have, and we pray that you will guide and direct each one of us as we work with our congregations. Today, we especially thank you for this opportunity again. Be with us as we travel, keep us safe. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Yep.
You have a wonderful day. Are you sitting at